If you thought you knew who was behind the attacks on CM Punk, you were dead wrong, and what happened backstage on Smackdown is going to blow your mind and make you question everything you thought you understood about loyalty, revenge, and justice in professional wrestling. CM Punk didn't wait for management to handle his business, he didn't file a complaint with human resources, and he certainly didn't sit back and let security do their job. No, CM Punk took matters into his own hands and ambushed his mystery attacker backstage on Smackdown, and the footage that leaked from this confrontation is absolutely brutal, raw, and unapologetic. But here's what's going to make your blood boil, here's what's going to have you throwing your remote at the television and screaming at your screen in absolute fury. The identity of the mystery attacker is someone who had absolutely no business going after CM Punk, someone who Punk trusted, someone who was supposed to be on his side, and the reasons behind these attacks are so petty, so childish, so utterly disrespectful that you're going to lose all respect for this person once I reveal who it is. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're a fan of this mystery attacker, if you've been defending them on social media, if you've been making excuses for their actions, you need to sit down and listen very carefully because what I'm about to expose is going to change your entire perspective on this situation. CM Punk is a lot of things, he's outspoken, he's controversial, he's not afraid to speak his mind even when it gets him in trouble, but one thing CM Punk has never been is someone who takes disrespect lying down. When someone crosses him, when someone violates his trust, when someone tries to end his career through cowardly backstage attacks, Punk doesn't go crying to management or book a therapist appointment to talk about his feelings. He handles it himself, with his own two hands, in the most violent and definitive way possible. And that's exactly what happened backstage on Smackdown when Punk finally caught up with his mystery attacker and delivered a beating so severe that multiple people had to pull him off before things got completely out of control. Let me set the scene for you because the context of this ambush is just as important as the ambush itself. For weeks, CM Punk has been dealing with random attacks that seemed to come out of nowhere. He'd be walking to his car after a show and get jumped from behind. He'd be in the trainer's room getting worked on and someone would attack him with a steel chair. He'd be doing an interview backstage and the lights would go out, and when they came back on, Punk would be laid out and his attacker would be gone. These weren't wrestling attacks where someone hits you with a move and then cuts a promo explaining their motivations. These were legitimately dangerous, legitimately violent attacks that could have ended CM Punk's career or caused serious injury. And throughout all of this, nobody knew who was behind it. There were theories, of course. People suspected it might be someone from Punk's past, someone he had wronged during his previous WWE run, someone looking for revenge over something that happened years ago. Other people thought it might be a new star trying to make a name for themselves by taking out one of the biggest names in the industry. Some conspiracy theorists even suggested it might be someone hired by management to make Punk's life miserable and force him to quit. But nobody knew for sure, and that uncertainty made every single appearance CM Punk made feel dangerous and unpredictable. You couldn't watch him walk down a hallway without wondering if someone was about to jump out and attack him. That's psychological warfare at its finest, and it was clearly taking a toll on Punk mentally and physically. But CM Punk is not the kind of person who stays a victim for very long. While everyone else was speculating and gossiping about who might be behind the attacks, Punk was doing his own investigation. He was reviewing security footage, he was talking to people backstage, he was piecing together clues and building a case against his attacker. And last week, something happened that gave Punk the final piece of evidence he needed to confirm the identity of his mystery attacker. I'm not going to tell you exactly what that evidence was because it involves some insider information that could get people in trouble, but let's just say that Punk obtained footage that definitively showed who was behind every single attack, and more importantly, it showed that these attacks weren't random acts of violence but carefully planned assaults designed to injure Punk and drive him out of WWE. Armed with this information, CM Punk could have done the professional thing. He could have taken the evidence to management and let them handle the situation through proper channels. He could have pressed charges and gotten law enforcement involved. He could have waited for his attacker to reveal themselves publicly and then challenged them to a match at the next pay-per-view where everything could be settled in the ring like professionals. But CM Punk didn't do any of those things because that's not who he is, and frankly, that's not what his attacker deserved. Instead, Punk decided to give his mystery attacker a taste of their own medicine. He was going to ambush them the same way they had been ambushing him, catch them off guard when they least expected it, and deliver the kind of beating that would make them regret ever thinking it was a good idea to come after the best in the world. Smackdown this past week was electric with tension because word had gotten around backstage that something big was going to happen. Nobody knew exactly what, but there was this feeling in the air that the mystery attacker situation was about to come to a head. CM Punk was scheduled to appear on the show, which was already notable because he had been taking time off to recover from the attacks and to conduct his investigation. The fact that he was coming back meant he was ready for confrontation, ready to expose his attacker and get his revenge. Throughout the show, there were teases and hints about what might happen. Commentary kept bringing up the attacks and wondering if we'd finally get answers. Backstage interviewers tried to get comments from CM Punk, but he refused to say anything, just walking past cameras with this intense, focused look on his face that told you he was a man on a mission. And then, about halfway through the show, it happened. There was commotion backstage, you could hear shouting and crashing sounds, and the cameras rushed to the scene to capture what would become one of the most shocking and violent moments in recent SmackDown history. The footage showed CM Punk absolutely destroying someone in what appeared to be a storage area backstage. He had his mystery attacker cornered against some equipment crates, and he was unleashing years of frustration and anger with every punch, every kick, every knee strike. And here's where things get absolutely insane. Here's the moment that's going to make you lose your mind. The mystery attacker, the person who had been tormenting CM Punk for weeks, the person who had been trying to end his career through cowardly backstage assaults, was none other than Seth Rollins. Yes, you heard that correctly. Seth freaking Rollins was behind every single attack on CM Punk, and the reasons behind it are so ridiculous and petty that it makes you question Seth's entire character as both a performer and a human being. According to sources backstage who have been briefed on the situation, Seth Rollins was attacking CM Punk because he felt like Punk was getting too much attention since returning to WWE. Seth felt like he should be the top guy, the face of the company, the person getting all the main event spots and big storylines. But instead, CM Punk comes back after years away and immediately becomes the most talked about person in wrestling, getting huge reactions from crowds, moving merchandise at record rates, and being positioned as one of the most important performers on the roster. Seth couldn't handle not being the center of attention anymore, so instead of stepping up his game and earning his spot like a professional, he decided to try to take CM Punk out through backstage attacks that could have legitimately injured or killed someone. The level of selfishness and immaturity in Seth Rollins' actions is absolutely staggering, and it makes you look back at his entire career with fresh eyes and realize that maybe he's not the stand-up guy everyone thought he was. Think about it. Seth Rollins has positioned himself as this locker room leader, this voice of reason, this person who cares about the business and wants what's best for WWE. He's given interviews talking about responsibility and professionalism and being a role model for younger talent. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, he's orchestrating a campaign of violence against a returning legend because he's jealous of the attention that legend is receiving. That's not leadership, that's not professionalism, that's the behavior of a spoiled child who throws a tantrum when things don't go their way. And what makes this even worse is that Seth Rollins has no leg to stand on when it comes to criticizing CM Punk or being jealous of his position. Punk is a bigger star than Seth has ever been or will ever be. Punk has had more memorable moments, more classic matches, more impactful storylines than Seth could dream of achieving. The fact that Punk gets more attention than Seth isn't some great injustice that needed to be corrected, it's simply reality reflecting the pecking order of star power in professional wrestling. CM Punk is a legend, a Hall of Famer, someone who changed the entire industry with his pipe bomb promo and his independent spirit. Seth Rollins is a very good wrestler who has had some great matches and won some championships, but he's not on CM Punk's level and he never will be, and apparently that reality is too much for Seth's ego to handle. So when CM Punk finally caught up with Seth Rollins backstage on SmackDown, all of that frustration and anger and betrayal came pouring out in the most violent way possible. The footage shows Punk just unloading on Seth with punch after punch to the face, and you can see Seth trying to cover up and defend himself, but it's useless because Punk is in full berserker mode, completely overwhelmed by rage and the desire for revenge. Punk grabs Seth by the hair and slams his face into an equipment crate, and you can see Seth's nose start bleeding from the impact. Then Punk throws Seth into a stack of chairs, and the sound of metal clanging and Seth groaning in pain echoes through the backstage area. Security and other wrestlers start rushing to the scene to break things up, but CM Punk is so amped up, so consumed by the need to make Seth pay for what he did, that he fights off anyone who tries to pull him away. At one point, Punk has Seth in a corner and is just driving knee after knee into his ribs and midsection, and you can see Seth gasping for air and trying to curl up into a fetal position to protect himself. It takes at least 6 people to finally separate CM Punk from Seth Rollins, and even then Punk is still trying to get free and continue the assault, screaming at Seth about betrayal and cowardice while being dragged away. The aftermath of this ambush is going to have serious consequences for everyone involved. CM Punk is almost certainly going to face suspension or fines for attacking another wrestler backstage, even though most people would argue that Seth deserved everything he got and more. WWE is going to have to figure out how to turn this real-life animosity into a storyline that fans can follow and invest in without it feeling exploitative or dangerous. And Seth Rollins is going to have to deal with the fact that his reputation is completely destroyed, that everyone now knows he's a jealous, petty coward who was willing to potentially end someone's career because he couldn't handle not being the top guy anymore. The locker room is reportedly divided on how to feel about this situation. On one hand, attacking someone backstage and taking justice into your own hands is generally frowned upon because it creates a chaotic and unsafe work environment. On the other hand, CM Punk was the victim of multiple unprovoked attacks and WWE management wasn't doing enough to stop them or identify the attacker, so many people feel like Punk was justified in handling things himself. As for Seth Rollins, the reports are that he has very little support among his peers right now. Even people who might have been sympathetic to his feelings about CM Punk getting attention don't condone the way he went about expressing those feelings through violence and cowardly attacks. What really bothers me about this entire situation is the sheer hypocrisy of Seth Rollins. This is the same guy who has spent years criticizing CM Punk for walking out on WWE, for supposedly not being a team player, for putting his own interests above the good of the company. Seth has given multiple interviews where he takes shots at Punk, questioning his commitment and his passion for wrestling. And now we find out that Seth was so threatened by Punk's return, so insecure about his own position, that he resorted to attacking Punk from behind like a coward? The irony is almost too much to handle. Seth Rollins, the self-appointed guardian of WWE's integrity and professionalism, was running around backstage attacking people with weapons when they weren't looking. Seth Rollins, who claims to care so much about the business, was willing to risk seriously injuring one of the biggest stars in wrestling history because of his own petty jealousy. The cognitive dissonance required to square those two versions of Seth Rollins is absolutely mind-bending, and it exposes him as someone who talks a big game about values and principles but abandons all of that the moment his ego is threatened. CM Punk's response to finally identifying and confronting his attacker tells you everything you need to know about the difference between him and Seth Rollins. Punk didn't go on social media and complain about being attacked. He didn't run to management and demand they do something about it. He didn't cut promos on television crying about how unfair it all was. He put his head down, did the detective work to find out who was behind the attacks, and then he handled it decisively and violently. That's old-school wrestling justice right there. That's the mentality of someone who understands that sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands if you want to get real resolution. And the beating CM Punk delivered to Seth Rollins backstage on Smackdown was not just about revenge, it was about sending a message to anyone else who might be thinking about coming after him. The message is clear: if you mess with CM Punk, if you attack him like a coward, if you try to end his career through backstage ambushes, he will find you and he will make you pay in the most brutal way possible. That's not a threat, it's a promise that was proven true when Seth Rollins got exactly what was coming to him. The fan reaction to this revelation and the subsequent ambush has been absolutely electric. Social media exploded with people expressing shock that Seth Rollins was the mystery attacker, with debates about whether CM Punk was justified in his actions, with calls for Seth to be fired or suspended indefinitely. The hashtag explaining this entire situation was trending worldwide within minutes of the footage leaking online. Fan forums and Reddit threads are filled with thousands of comments analyzing every aspect of the story. Some people are defending Seth Rollins, arguing that jealousy and insecurity are human emotions and that maybe the attacks were his misguided way of trying to establish dominance or earn respect. But the overwhelming majority of fans have turned on Seth, recognizing that what he did was indefensible and that CM Punk's response was not only justified but necessary. There's something deeply satisfying for fans about seeing a wrestler take justice into their own hands and deliver a receipt for wrongs that were done to them. We're conditioned by years of watching wrestling to want to see bad guys get what's coming to them, to want to see heroes stand up for themselves and fight back against those who wrong them. CM Punk ambushing Seth Rollins backstage fulfills that narrative in the most visceral and satisfying way possible. Looking ahead, the question becomes, where does this storyline go from here? Obviously Seth Rollins and CM Punk are on a collision course toward a major match, probably at the next pay-per-view event. But after what happened backstage on Smackdown, can this feud stay contained within the normal boundaries of professional wrestling? These two men legitimately hate each other now. CM Punk was already frustrated with Seth's previous comments and criticisms, but discovering that Seth was behind the attacks that could have ended his career took that frustration and turned it into white-hot rage. And Seth, who apparently was already jealous and resentful of Punk's position, just got publicly humiliated and beaten down by Punk in front of the entire locker room, which is only going to intensify his negative feelings. When these two finally meet in an official match, it's going to be violent, personal, and potentially dangerous because the line between working and shooting is going to be very thin. Both men are going to want to legitimately hurt each other, and WWE is going to have to be very careful about how they structure and referee that match to make sure things don't get completely out of hand. At the same time, that very real animosity is what's going to make the match must-see television. Fans are going to tune in because they know they're not just watching a worked wrestling match, they're watching two people who genuinely despise each other trying to inflict as much pain as possible within the confines of a wrestling ring. That's the kind of authentic emotion and conflict that you can't fake, and it's what separates good wrestling from truly great, memorable wrestling. As I bring this to a close, I want you to really think about what we've witnessed here and what it says about professional wrestling in the current era. CM Punk ambushing Seth Rollins backstage isn't just a cool moment or an exciting storyline development. It's a statement about how far someone is willing to go when they've been wronged, when they've been attacked, when they've been disrespected. It's a reminder that underneath all the entertainment and performance aspects of wrestling, there are real people with real emotions who sometimes reach a breaking point and respond in ways that blur the lines between character and reality. Seth Rollins made a massive mistake by targeting CM Punk the way he did, and now he's paying the price for that mistake in the most painful way possible. And CM Punk has proven once again why he's one of the most compelling and unpredictable figures in all of professional wrestling. He doesn't play by the rules, he doesn't wait for permission, and he doesn't let anyone disrespect him without consequences. What happened backstage on SmackDown is going to be talked about for years to come, and it sets the stage for what could be one of the most intense and personal feuds in recent wrestling history. So make sure you comment below with your thoughts on this entire situation. Do you think CM Punk was justified in ambushing Seth Rollins? Do you think Seth deserved an even worse beating than what he got? And where do you see this feud going from here? Share this video with every wrestling fan you know, because this is the kind of moment that defines eras and creates legends. And most importantly, acknowledge that CM Punk just delivered one of the most satisfying moments of revenge we've seen in wrestling in a very long time.